Hey, I'm Brie, and this is my sister Jules. I'm an English teacher.
And I just watched the movie Sinners, and I can't stop talking about it.
And together we drink wine as we unpack the brilliant writing of the hit 90s sitcom Boy Meets World. Cheers.
Cheers. Clink.
What are we drinking?
We're drinking another Winc wine, part of our subscription box. Today we're drinking Wonders white wine blend, Vin de France. So it's a French wine in the sense that the grapes are sourced from France, but since it's by Winc, they're sourced from France and brought to California.
I'm excited about this. You heard me just pop it open. It's so fresh.
Yeah, I'm excited too because the label says no sugar and made with organic grapes. And we've had a no sugar wine before and we loved it. And I felt great the next day. So speaking of feeling great the next day, remember last episode when I said, oh my God, the porter and plot, I'm not going to wake up with a headache. I woke up with a massive headache. And then I was like, did I drink too much? And then I ended up drinking a little bit more like 2 days later because I still had some left. I woke up with a massive headache the next day. So I jinxed myself.
Okay, good to know. That's some good feedback for the listeners.
Did you try this?
Not yet. I just wanted to say I love French wine. I love that this is no sugar, and I love that it's organic grapes. So I'm excited. Oh, don't let me down. Okay. Not really what I expected, but not bad.
Why wasn't it what you were expecting?
There's a taste that I need to name this taste because I recognize it in other wines, but I don't know what to call it.
Well, the aromas are scents of white flowers, citrus, and lime. The flavors are crisp citrus notes like lemon and grapefruit, complemented by tropical and white fruit flavors.
Yeah. I think it's the lime, which I'm not into. I don't love this citrusy flavor profile, but I also think it has the taste that do you remember when we did Yellowtail? I think it was Yellowtail. And I talked about how I felt like sometimes with certain wines, there's a coating that feels like my tongue is a Teflon pan and the wine is not quenching my tongue.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what this one is doing a little bit. And I think it's probably either microplastics or sulfites or something that is unnatural. So the fact that they're no sugar, organic grapes, I'm realizing now that I'm sus, because those two things might be true, but they might also be masking that there's a ton of sulfites or something, because it doesn't actually taste clean to me.
I like the lime citrusy white wines. To me, it's kind of like a white sangria. Very, very summery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to drink all of it as I usually do.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about how mid it is while I take 14 sips.
I mean, it's certainly drinkable, right?
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
To
you, it's drinkable. To me, it's actually enjoyable.
Okay. I can't wait till we find a wine that I'm into that you're not into.
Yeah.
I'm going to be you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're very kind to let me believe I'm right.
You have an undeveloped palate.
Wonders is the name of this wine, Vin de France, if you missed that. Let's get into the episode. So we watched season 2, episode 4, title, Me and Mr. Joad. Synopsis, Cory is inspired by a book, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, to fight for his rights as a student. Air date, October 14th, 1994. Written by Jeff Mennell. Directed by David Trainer. Viewers, 18.6 million. What were your first impressions?
We're getting back into the groove of season 1 that I loved, of a very clear literary work that's the main reference of the episode. Yep. And I feel like everybody's kind of dialed in, and I laughed a lot in this episode.
I did too. Yeah, everyone was on point. I thought the writing was great. I thought people were snappy and humorous and delivering their lines well. There was only one line that Cory delivered that I was oh man, you kind of missed that one, Ben Savage. But every other person, especially Amy, everyone was just on point, very locked into their character.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were so many references that I asked Jules to actually push back our meeting time for this because I was still researching all of the references in this episode. So
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I did a little research myself because newsflash, I didn't read the book.
All right, so we start off in the kitchen, and Amy comes over to Cory, who's sitting at the kitchen table reading The Grapes of Wrath, which is a tome of a novel. And she says, that's The Grapes of Wrath. And Cory says, yes, it is. And Amy says, that's a real book. And Cory says, it's a 2-pounder. And Amy says, and it looks like you're very near the end. And Cory says, page 582. Amy says, I am impressed. I'm impressed to the point of, who are you? And Cory turns the page backwards and says, and now I'm on 581. And Amy goes, you're reading backwards? And Cory goes, yeah, see, this way I already know what's going to happen, which makes everything that happens before it make sense. What do you think? Did you ever like try that or do that?
I think I've tried that before.
I
Doesn't work.
No. I remember watching this episode, and like cartoons did this to me a bunch. I was kind of a gullible kid in that way, where like I would see a cartoon and be like, oh, let me try that. Maybe it'll work, you know?
Yeah. Or I wanted that superpower where I can just flip through a book really quick in 2 seconds and absorb all the information.
Totally. I wished I could like montage my way through something hard. Like I was like, oh, I'll just enter a montage and then I'll clean, my room will be clean.
Yes. With some music in the background.
Yeah. So yeah, Cory, I totally like remember watching this episode and being like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me try that. And then just being like, nope, this makes no sense. I actually really liked the next joke, but this is the one that Cory, I think, didn't deliver super well because the writing is great. So Amy goes, pretty good. Not as good as your idea of taking all 30 showers on the first of the month. And Cory goes, yeah, I was too clean in February. Which like takes a minute, but you're like, because there's 28 days in February. So if he took 30 showers on the first day and it was a real method that worked, then he would have taken too many showers for the month of February. So it would have been too clean in February.
Oh, thank you for explaining that to me because I did not get it.
I thought it was a hilarious joke. So Eric like sprints down the stairs, full energy. Like I don't think we've even seen this from him in the entire series so far. And Amy, full energy, just stops him. She's like barricading him, like her hands are on his body and he's like trying to push through her. And she's going, no, I don't care what Aaron Desiree is sending you on. You are going to sit down and eat some breakfast. And they're like tackling each other, fighting. And then he like backs up and he's like a boxer, like coming at her. And he's like, you'd like that if she never got her shampoo. Wouldn't you, Mom? Wouldn't you? And they like link arms at some point, almost like do-si-do around in a circle. As they're doing that, Amy's going, what kind of control does this girl have over you? And Eric's like, the girl does not control me. I control her.
Oof.
And then his beeper beeps. And then everything kind of calms down because he immediately has to attend to the beeper. And Amy's like, ha, because she feels like she won. And Eric sees the beeper and goes, she needs conditioner. And then he like fakes Amy out and then gets out the door. And Amy's just like sighs and she's like, I've lost my son. Good thing I have another son. And then Cory is reading the book and he just quotes the book and goes, whenever there's a fight so hungry people can eat, I'll be there. Whenever there's a cop beating up a guy, I'll be there. Boy, that came out of nowhere. So essentially, it's a bunch of migrant workers, right? Like Turner explains it. It's a bunch of migrant workers who are fighting the man, essentially, right? Because they're not getting livable wages and they're being mistreated. There's no justice in the system. And it's about, unions and workers' rights. And so the end of the book, it's not like there's a happy ending, but there's this quote about how I'm always going to fight. Like, we're just going to keep fighting. It's just about oppression, right? Oppression under a system that's not serving the lower class. This was a fascinating episode to watch right now. Yes. Because, I fully see that a lot of what's going on in our politics, and like, I can't get into it because it'll become the whole podcast, but a lot of the culture wars are a diversion for the class wars, right? If we can get people to focus on hating each other for being immigrants, being trans, being, you name it, black, whatever the case may be, the less they'll focus on the fact that the wealthy are exploiting the poor. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And this book is about class struggle. And I just think that, it's a book that I was like, I don't think I could read like a 600-page novel with my freshman these days in this day and age of TikTok. But it would be a fascinating book to, at the very least, read excerpts of and talk about,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Incredibly interesting coincidence, because I watched the episode just before recording this. So earlier in the day, before I even watched today's episode, did not know what this was going to be about. I watched one of the episodes from John Oliver, and it was about migrant farm workers and
Amazing.
the oppression that is happening today. And it's so akin to 50 plus years ago, and it's like, unless you're like in it, it's so hard, it's so easy to kind of overlook what's actually happening. But it's like essentially a new form of slavery, and that's just one example. I know there's lots of different examples there, but it kind of speaks to like, because the ending of the Grapes of Wrath was like not necessarily positive, there's this idea of like, we keep on fighting, and you do, because it's still happening today.
Right.
Things are better than they were in 1932, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And if you're out there like, things are not better, things are worse, I recommend a book called Factfulness. It's a book about how things are better than we think that they are, and that we are kind of primed to always think that things are worse. But if you look at the data, kind of says the opposite. But yes.
That's compared to what?
Compared to how things were in the past, that we improve, we progress.
Sure.
Again, I'm trying to keep it about this episode and not about all the other things that this makes me want to talk about. But I'm sure they'll come up as we go.
Let's keep it straight, because
So we shift to the classroom, and Turner's doing his cool English teacher thing, sitting on the desk with his jeans.
Gotta love it.
Yeah. And his cowboy boots. And his tucked in dress shirt with a cool funky design, and his tie.
And his earring.
And his earring boy. I laughed
earring
at that
boy.
line.
I am earring boy.
So Turner's like, okay, we're talking about the Grapes of Wrath. Who can give us an overview of what we've read so far? Cory raises his hand. Turner. Muscle spasm, Matthews? Which is an excellent alliteration. Cory. No, sir. I'd like to take a shot. Turner. Okay, everybody give him room. Cory goes, all right. I think the conclusion of the book shows the Joad family has been pretty much destroyed by the greedy farm bosses. But the author's telling us they still have their dignity, and they're going to fight on. It's just like a pregnant pause, and Turner goes, what just happened? And Shawn goes, you're a disgrace to the entire back row. And Turner goes, okay, the story about migrant farm workers in the 1930s shows us that powerful people will exploit the powerless until they organize and stand up for their rights. God, I want to talk about other things, but we're going to keep it straightforward. So Cory's hand goes up again. Turner asks, what? And Cory says, yeah, the thing about the 1930s, will we have to know dates for the test? And Turner's like, the date is not as important as understanding the historical context of the whole struggle for workers' rights. And Shawn raises his hand. Excuse me, what page is the historical context on? And that's like totally a question that a freshman would ask. That's why I laughed so hard. I was like, oh my God, I can see that happening. And Turner goes, are you kidding me? And Shawn goes, we need to know that for the test, right? Turner's like, no, forget about the test. I want you to learn about this book to add to your personal knowledge, not just to pass a test. This was the moment that I actually paused, and I texted my coworker, and I told him to watch this episode. And I told him that we need to schedule a day to get together and talk about this episode, because this episode is one of the ones that when I was rewatching the whole series over a year ago, before we even started this podcast, I was like, oh, I want to start a podcast because I want to talk about this idea of Turner versus Feeney, old versus new. I'm coming out of being a new teacher, and I'm heading towards being an old teacher, but I'm not in either anymore.
You're stuck between Turner and Feeney.
I don't know if you know anything that's going on in the world of academia, but they have like essentially gotten rid of the regents. There's a lot of momentum with the movement to abolish the SATs. There's a lot of universities that now have like optional SATs. Like you can give your scores if you want to. Essentially, we're moving away from testing. And the AP is really radically considering how are we going to rethink our AP exams. So
what a time to be a high schooler. Oh my God.
Right. And so this episode was fascinating to me because I was like, because I'm very much in the middle of a lot of things. And I'm like, I'm not on Feeney's side in this episode, but I'm not on Feeney's side.
Yeah.
Part of me is like,
yeah.
You got kind of lucky with this time. Like Shawn read the book, but I don't think Shawn's going to read the book next time if there's no test,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's this idea of a slippery slope in either direction. That's why balance is important. And what I thought about this episode as I was watching it was looking back onto how I learned or did not learn in my past. And the way that I saw it was like the idea of forcing students to take a test, like that's what you have to do. You learn or you read the material because you need to take a test to pass, to not get in trouble, to graduate, versus Turner's take is like, I actually want you guys to learn this. So like, I don't want the pressure of a test to like force you guys to do this. Like, I want you to naturally, organically want to understand this material. And for me, my experience, I air quote learned because I was terrified to fail. And so I thought that I had to like memorize to learn when that was not the case. So like maybe I did well, maybe I didn't. But it wasn't until I actually wanted to learn the material did I actually like do very well and retain information and grew and learned from that.
Right.
And I think that's where Turner's coming from. And so I think there's a balance there, right? Like you have to make sure that kids are retaining the information, but to suggest that like the pressure should always be on a test, like I don't know about that. How do we strike a balance?
A combination of really great classroom activities that are breadcrumbs leading students to deep internalized knowledge, then giving them a test and allowing them the chance to feel the excitement of accomplishment when they take the test because they're like, oh, I know this.
Yes, yes. And I thought it was subtle, but I thought it was a great example when I think it was Cory that said, do we need to worry about what date this event happened on in the book? And he's like, I don't really care about the dates. It's about like the context. It's about the whole thing. That was like a big brain shift for me as I was like taking English class. I like was like, this is like a history book, or sorry, this is like a textbook. Like I have to memorize all these facts when no, the date's not important. It's what you get out of the book that's important.
Yeah. Now as I see things cycling back, I think it's important to understand dates so you can predict, okay, in 100 years, we're probably going to be dealing with this stuff again, right?
Yes, like a pandemic.
Exactly.
It's always about 100 years away.
Crazy.
So hopefully I won't be alive in 100 years. If I am, I'll probably die from the next plague.
Anyway, Cory's like, okay. Just one more question about the written thing you put a grade on that tells our parents that we're idiots. There won't be any essays, will there? And Turner's like, Matthews, as long as you read the book and open your yap during the class discussion, no test. Okay? Now, can we possibly return to what is important here? And the bell rings and the whole class just goes, no test. And they leave. I assumed that they were going to come in the next day not having read the book. And I actually had an experience in college where because this professor didn't really give any assessments, we constantly came into the class not really having done the reading. And admittedly, we were all probably just being lazy, maybe expected to show up and be lectured at. And we didn't really want to like put the work in and show up and like join the discussion. We just wanted to like sit back and listen and be passive. And our professor started kind of asking us questions and everyone was silent. No one was talking, and he tried to start this discussion, and it wasn't happening. And he just got visibly agitated, and he was like, did any of you do the reading? And we were all just silent. And he goes, you know what? I'm not teaching this class. Y'all can leave. And he was like, and don't come back next week unless you've done the reading. And we all just walked out. And everyone was in the hallway like, oh no. So we all certainly did the reading the week after that. And I think we all needed it, honestly. I kind of respected it. I never thought he was in the wrong. I never felt any kind of indignation. I just was like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, that was uncool of us. And the next week we had an amazing discussion. because we all really read, and he was able to ask us questions and we answered them. That's what this class is supposed to be. And it is much better when we do the reading. Like we had to learn that lesson.
It's like, that's why we're here right now.
Yeah.
Right. It's simple as that. It's like, if you didn't do the reading, don't come to the class. Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything out of it. I'm not going to get anything out of it as a teacher. So get out or come prepared.
Anyway, what I'm just coming around to saying here is sometimes the test, it seems on the surface like a shallow way to get kids to learn stuff. And yes, ideally they're having learning experiences that are infusing them with the information because they're feeling like the material is immediately applicable to something that they're trying to do, right? Like there's some goal they're trying to achieve. They're having these eureka moments where they're understanding the importance of, right? Like all that is beautiful and excellent and obviously an elite form of teaching. It's just not realistic to have 30 very different human beings all experience that in one lesson, you know, like, or in one activity that like brings them to that point. Like Cory and Shawn learn an incredible lesson by the end of this episode, but it's really just them that learn it. Like, what about everyone else in the class? Like, I was kind of like, well, they had to go take a test. You know, while school is absolutely about education and learning, there's an other element to it that is also, it is childcare. It is a place for you to send your kid throughout the day. And so teachers are dealing with babysitting 30 plus kids at once, and they have to keep them occupied and entertained and interested and also not fighting with each other and also healthy and make them good people and, you know, teach them how to live in a society and a community with others. And, you know, like there's so much happening. So yeah, giving them these moments where they have to like, show what they know and take a test. I believe in it. I do. Like, and I think that, yeah, there are going to be the students that just memorize and spit out the information. That's going to get them so far. At some point, they're going to hit a point like you did where they're going to be like, this isn't working for me anymore. The material's too complex. The questions on the test are getting heady. Like, I don't know. I can't memorize this. Like, I need to actually know what I'm talking about now. Right. And that is about good test writing. And I do believe there are bad tests and good tests. So at some point you shift. And I had that same thing happen to me, Jules. I remember when I realized that if I actually paid attention in class when the teacher was teaching and I treated that like I was studying for the test, I did better on the test versus if I was like asleep and passive in class and then crammed right before the test. If I was proactive and I read a little bit along the way and I really made sure that by the end I was like, yeah, I know everything already because I studied already because I paid attention to everything that was done and said. I didn't actually have to study for the test. Like I would look over my notes a little bit, but I was ready.
Do you think one of the reasons why it took us so long to get to that point where we're like, oh, we have to like learn, learning was because we were plopped into a classroom from such an early age, and to expect that like 6 or 7-year-olds are just expected to like sit in a room and listen to a teacher talk all day and like learn in the way that we think about learning now versus just like, okay, I'm being talked at, I need to like read this book and then I need to take a test. And if I don't get 100, my mommy yells at me. Like, do you know what I mean? Like if you're kind of taught, you're not really taught how to learn from such an early age. And I would argue that it's hard to explain that to a 6-year-old. And every year they're just expected, you know, every year it's a new teacher, same classroom, right? Same deal every single year. It wasn't until much later in my life that I realized, oh, wait, I've been doing this wrong. And I just kind of had to figure it out for myself. And I think that just came with age and maturity.
And that's the best way to learn. And I think it's okay to struggle in school for a few years and then lock in like a random year that it just happens for you. Like it happens in different years for everyone. You know, I've seen it happen. It happens a lot in junior year for some reason. A lot of like, I don't know what it is about that like sophomore to junior jump where people like their brain develops in a way where they're like, oh, learning.
Yeah.
But freshmen are definitely still like, I don't know, there's like a nervousness. There's like an approach that's very much like what Cory and Shawn demonstrate, which is like, do I need to know this for the test? Like, should I memorize 1930? They're still trying to figure out, like, what do I highlight in the book? Like, what's important? You know, do I just highlight the whole page? How about you evaluate the information, right? That's a higher level thinking thing, right? There's something called Bloom's taxonomy, which is sort of like a hierarchy of understanding. And the like base level of like learning is remembering. Can you memorize facts and recall them? Then there's understanding. Like, do you actually understand what you're memorizing? Then there's applying. Do you know it so well that you can now apply it to a different situation? Then there's analyzing, which is like drawing connections among ideas, differentiating, organizing, relating, comparing and contrasting. And then right under the very top is evaluating. Have an opinion about it. What do you think? And then the very, very top is creating. You now could like build your own building because you understand how
it all works. Yeah.
How it all works. Yeah. And for me, that's why I believe in creative writing so much, because you can unpack a story and understand, oh, this is foreshadowing, and oh, this author like used this metaphor here and like blah, blah, blah. But can you write a story that uses foreshadowing? Can you use a metaphor in your story? Like, can you make it a conceit? Like, do you understand how story crafting works? Feeney Feeney and Turner come into the cafeteria together, and Feeney goes, my, your fourth period English class is looking unusually chipper today. And Turner says, it's International Day here in the cafeteria. Nothing lights up a face like a big bowl of hummus. I was like,
also, why was Feeney's lunch a cup of tea?
Oh my God, I didn't even notice that, but that so checks out. I cannot tell you how many times I've just had a cup of tea for lunch.
He literally had a whole tray for it too. He had his tray. He put it down. It was just a cup of tea in the center of the tray.
We will never see him vulnerable. Like, we will never see him need sustenance.
You're right. Eating is very vulnerable.
So Feeney says, that could be, but I wonder if it had anything to do with your innovative no test policy. And Turner's like, it's just a policy. I just made the kids a deal that if they do the work and learn this book, that I don't think they need a test on the book. I don't think that's radical thinking. Do you? Feeney's like, oh, no, not at all. Just, in fact, why don't we take off our clothes and run willy-nilly through the woods?
I love willy-nilly.
And Turner's like, if my kids know their stuff, then why do I need a test to prove it? This is a big part of our school philosophy. And Feeney says, how do you determine that they know their stuff? This is always my argument, because you can't put that much power in the hands of a single human being teacher. Humans are fallible, right? And when you do that, when you have the teacher just decide, you know your stuff, no, you don't know your stuff, that is way too susceptible to being compromised by internal biases. A teacher you can't just please that one teacher's perception of what it means to know the material, right? And you might be a student who's just a quiet kid who prefers to write your ideas out and you need more time to process. And then there could be another student kind of like me that's like a very auditory oral processor who's like a fast speaker and can really express their complex ideas quickly in a classroom and loudly and with confidence. And so I'm going to come across like I know what I'm talking about and I'm going to get the A, and the kid who actually is way smarter than me and has a much more sophisticated, thought out response to the question and doesn't use like every 3 seconds and doesn't sound like a valley girl when they say it, they should get the A+, but I'm getting it because I'm louder and I'm just pleasing that teacher's way of assessing my knowledge. So you can't do that. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. Like, I've seen teachers like Turner be like, I know my kids and I know what they know, and they don't actually know their kids and they don't actually know what they know.
I remember I was in 5th grade and I was on the basketball team. We were really exhausted. And so like the coach came over, he was like, sit down, like I want to have a chat, like trying to motivate us and whatever. And I remember I was like looking down, listening, and like, he was like, I need you to look up at me. Like, I need you to know that you're like listening. And I was just like, I was kind of out of it. And I looked up at him and as he was talking, and then I like stopped listening after that. It was like I could only really pay attention when I was looking down, and he thought that I wasn't listening because I was looking down, when in fact I was more engaged looking down than looking at your face, because now I'm distracted by your face.
We have the same genes. I am the exact same way. It is hard for me to listen to someone when I'm looking at them because I'm looking at their face. Yeah. And my brain is going, oh, look at their eyeballs and look at their nose and look at, like, I'm just thinking about their face.
Yeah, it's almost like if I look at you while you're talking to me, like I have to pay attention to your face while I like match your cues, and I'm focused on the cues than like actually paying attention to what you're saying. Whereas if it's kind of like recalling something in your past, like you kind of look away as if you're trying to grab that memory from far away. It's the same thing. Like I need to kind of look away to like visualize what you're talking about versus like focusing on your face.
Totally. So Turner's response is, if my kids know their stuff, then why do I need a test to prove it? And Feeney says, how do you determine if they know their stuff? And Turner says, because I know my kids. And Feeney says, I know my dog, but I haven't a clue what he's thinking. Without the test, your students will come into class tomorrow knowing absolutely nothing. And Turner says, well, call me optimistic, but I think you're wrong. And Feeney says, are you optimistic enough to try a theory? Feeney proposes, give the test tomorrow. And Turner's like, and what'll that prove? And Feeney says, it'll prove whether they really work when they believe they don't have to. I like this meeting of the new and the old. Mm-hmm. So we're in the kitchen. Jason and Amy are talking about Eric being whipped by Desiree. I really don't like that Jason makes a comment to Amy. Yeah, you're shaking your head.
Yuck.
What did he say?
He said, you're looking hot. Immediately leave. Do not enter this house again if you're going to speak to me like that. Ever. That's what I would say. If my 15-year-old son's friend was saying that about me, disgusting, nip it in the bud immediately.
And then what about what he says to her about Baywatch, The Next Generation?
Oh, what'd he say?
He goes, didn't you just get a guest spot on Baywatch? She goes, thank you, Jason, but I think I'm just a little too mature. And Jason goes, oh, stop. I'll tell you, though, if they do Baywatch The Next Generation, you're in.
Get out.
So Eric comes down. He's not dressed for the basketball game. Jason and he have a conversation about Desiree. Jason calls her Vampira. And Eric basically says he has to go to the mall with Desiree, and that's why he can't go to the game. Jason says to Amy, my condolences on the loss of your son. And Amy says, thank you, Jason. And in lieu of flowers, please send donations to the foundation for the terminally whipped.
Damn.
It's just interesting that, like, when a man's controlling a woman, that plot is dark. That plot is violent. Mm-hmm. That plot is serious. And if a woman's controlling a man, it's like, oh my God, he's so whipped, you know? And
yeah,
I mean, I get it because I do understand the much higher levels of violence of men against women. But it's just interesting to me. I'm just noting it, you know?
Yeah. No, it is interesting.
So Eric has a pager, the pager from earlier. It's pink, by the way, and it goes off, and Jason snatches it and looks, and he goes, oh, so she's just pulled into the driveway and she would like a glass of water. And a part of me was like, how does he know that from the pager? Like, did pagers work that way where you could send a message?
I think so. I think like the more recent pagers of the time did.
I think I'm thinking of a beeper.
Are they not the same thing?
Pagers initially sent phone numbers to the pager indicating a request for the recipient to call back. Later, alphanumeric pagers allowed for text messages, but even then they were primarily one-way devices. Okay.
How did the message get sent though?
That's a great question. If it's one way, you're right. How do you send it?
Yeah. Is it T9? Was that invented yet?
How did I'm gonna type that
in. Because I don't think like if you're using like a landline or like a cell phone, they didn't have like little screens on them. If you were typing in the letters on the numbers, how do you guarantee that you're typing out a message that is coherent?
Okay, so it says to send a message to a pager, you would dial the pager's 10-digit phone number. wait for a tone, and then enter your number followed by the pound sign. For alphanumeric pagers, you can send text messages via email or text messaging depending on the pager's capabilities. Some alphanumeric pagers also offer two-way response capabilities, allowing the okay, so there were pagers that were two-way where you could type out a message to the pager, and you could also apparently email the pager.
Wow. The first text message.
First text message. Oh my God, that's so cool that that's on this show. So she's like in the drive. You know how long it probably took to send that message? So she like pulled into the driveway and probably spent like 5 minutes like, I'm here. Can you get me a glass of water? Like she could have just come in and asked for it.
And that time just come in, yeah. Which she does.
She does. So Amy freaks out and they get into that like physical altercation again where she's like, Eric, you go near that sink and I will not be responsible for what I do. And she sprays him in the crotch with the sink hose. Eric runs upstairs. So Desiree comes in and we get a moment between Desiree and Jason, which I love their dynamic because Jason hates her and it's so funny. She's like, oh, hello, Jason. I don't know how to do this accent. Over here doing a little yard work. I don't know what kind of southern accent I'm trying to do. Yard work. Yeah, she's like a Southern Belle kind of southern.
Be a dear and run and fetch Eric for me.
Love it. And Jason's like, geez, Desiree, they didn't tell you? Seems as though Eric was taking a bath and the pager went off. Wasn't pretty. They're zipping the bag up now. As a matter of fact, you should get out of here before the cops start asking questions. Like she killed him with her page. It's so funny.
When he said that, I pictured him fully clothed in the bathtub with his pager clipped to his belt.
You're so right. Also, like, if that was true, like, in the time it took for her to get from her car to the door, the police have arrived and gotten him into a body bag and are zipping the bag up. Yeah. Like, there's so many ridiculous things about that statement. It's so funny. And then Eric comes down and Jason's like, you're alive. Desiree's like,
may I ask why you're wearing a dish towel in your trousers?
And Eric's like, see, my zipper was hit by lightning and my mom had to throw water on me to put the fire out. Jason's like, Eric, come on, like, play hoops with me. Like, I'm throwing you a lifeline here, boy. Like, please don't hang out with Desiree over me. Desiree goes, you play basketball? And Jason goes, yeah. And she goes, aren't you a little petite? And Jason is like, okay, that's it. You and me, North against South rematch. And Desiree's like, are you gonna let him talk to me like that? Jason says, are you gonna let her talk to me like that? And Eric says, yes. Oh, he says yes because Desiree like flashes her beautiful eyes at him and like scooches out from behind Jason and is like, remember how pretty I am. Oh my God, I'm totally forgetting her outfit in this scene.
Oh.
Did you notice how beautiful it was?
Oh, with the sheer shirt and the skirt. Yeah, I loved it. I would wear it.
Right? It was like a white velvet A-line skirt that had a high waist. Mm-hmm. And she had this white tank top and then a sheer white collared button-down shirt over it.
That's such an outfit you would wear.
Oh, with white stockings. I didn't quite catch her shoes, but they were definitely heels, maybe a little kitten heel. Mm-hmm. And she had like her beautiful hair that's like very big and curly. And her, she just was like, I was like, oh my God. I was like,
no wonder why he's whipped.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I get it. She's so beautiful. Oh my God. But that outfit was everything. It was like so Friends, you know, like I could see Rachel or Monica wearing that outfit, you know?
Yep. Yeah. You're right. It's funny that we did like outfit of the day in season 1, but like overall, like the outfits in this show are not necessarily like trendy in the way that like the outfits in Friends are, where it's like Rachel has like an iconic outfit or hairstyle. Yeah. In this show, it's not really the case. It's not the focus, but this character.
Yeah. And her outfit at the end is very clueless and I love it.
Yes.
So Desiree says,
I'm afraid you have a little decision to make between your little elfin friend and myself.
Jason goes, I am not Elfin. I am a human being. Did you understand that reference?
I didn't.
So that's from The Elephant Man.
Oh.
So in The Elephant, it's like the saddest, I can't. It's like the saddest movie. He's like running through this subway station, this train station, and all these people are chasing him because he knocked down a little girl because these kids were taunting him. So he's like running away from these kids, and then he accidentally runs over a little girl, and then they all surround him, and he just yells, I am not an elephant. I am not an animal. I am a human being. It's so sad.
That's devastating. I don't ever want to watch that.
I know. But instead of I am not an elephant, I am a human being, he says I am not Elvin, I am a human being. So it was fun. If you got the reference.
Now I get the reference.
So we're in the classroom. We're still talking about the Grapes of Wrath. I love how like on display this book was. All right, class, the Grapes of Wrath. By the way, I can't believe we made it this far and we haven't done We are the Grapes of Wrath. We never take a bath. That was my first reference to the Grapes of Wrath. Also, do you know like where that even comes from or like what? Okay.
No.
So
but I know that song. I was singing it today.
The Grapes of Wrath. It's a biblical reference, but it was a patriotic song. What is the name of the song? I can't remember the name of the song right now. The
Battle Hymn of the Republic.
The Battle Hymn of the Republic. And it's the song that's like, glory, glory, hallelujah.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming
of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. So he's trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. Which I think is where we get like stamping out evil from. I love it because
grapes?
Oh my God!
Theme?
Another connection to the wine.
Which we said we're going to try to do every episode, even if it's far-fetched.
Woo! We did it! Yes. I like it because essentially the evil where the grapes of wrath are stored, it's actually about like abolition. Like it's, stamping out the evil of the pro-slavery South, which is interesting. There's so many like connections going on because essentially like we've got Desiree, who's this like Southern belle, right? And then we get this reference to like stamping out, the evil that the South was fighting for in the war, right? And she represents like this evil character, right? Like he literally like does like Jason, like he puts up like the cross symbol to her and treats her like she's a vampire.
I didn't mention it last episode, but her full name was introduced last episode.
Yeah.
Her last name being Beaumont, and I literally almost said, her family definitely owned slaves.
Yeah. So on that note, exactly. So there's that connection. But then there's also, later we get a reference to Frank Costello, and Alan goes like to Turner, you want to talk to Hoffa and Costello? So Hoffa is a reference to Jimmy Hoffa, and both Hoffa and Frank Costello were just like crime bosses basically. But Hoffa specifically was a union organizer. So he began union organizational work at the grassroots level as a teenager through his job with a grocery chain, which relates to Alan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which paid substandard wages and offered poor working conditions with minimal job security. They were displeased with the situation and tried to organize a union to better their wages. Although Hoffa was young, his courage and approachability in that role impressed fellow workers, and he rose to a leadership position. And by 1932, after refusing to work for an abusive shift foreman, Hoffa left the grocery chain partly because of his union activities, and he was then invited to become an organizer with Local 299 of the Teamsters. That was like his union that he led in Detroit. And between 1933 and 1935, Hoffa organized by pulling up at the side of the road alongside sleeping truck drivers, waking them up and giving them his sales pitch. Can't wait to get to the union song that they sing, so we gotta keep moving. So Turner's talking about the Grapes of Wrath. He says, we see that the struggle to organize to get justice for the migrant farm workers was long and difficult. Heads were broken, people were killed, a lot of blood. Sean's like, sounds like bingo night at my trailer park. Turner's like, now the Joads, Like the Joads, we also find ourselves in the middle of a little struggle. We don't want tests. We think we can learn material without them. Class is like, yeah, right. Turner's like, now the boss, or Mr. Feeney in this case, doesn't believe us. So what we gotta do is prove to the boss that we can learn this book without taking a test. This is like a big faux pas in the teaching world, by the way. Like, you never throw another teacher under the bus. You never say like, well, I wanted to let you guys have your cell phones, but Mr. Feeney said we have to take them away. Like, it's, you gotta talk about union organization. Like, teachers gotta be on each other's sides. Like, we can't, trust me, it's messy. Don't do it. If you're listening to this and you're a teacher and you're actually listening to my advice, don't do it. You will regret it. Because it will come back to that teacher, and that teacher will hate you forever, and you will need to be on the same side about something, and you won't be. And listen, things fall apart. Chinua Achebe, the center will not hold. I'm telling you, you got to stay together. It's you against the kids. Just kidding. Okay, so Turner's like, okay, he starts handing out papers. The class is like, what's going on? And they suddenly realize that he's basically giving them a test. He's like, don't worry, it's like a survey. And they're like, no, survey says this is a test. So Shawn's like, what? Like, Cory's like, you gave us your word. And Shawn's like, I even read the book. Which I noted, and I was like, interesting. You might actually do well on the test then. Maybe take the test. Yeah. Group was like, I love the gasp that happened after he said that. Like, everyone was like,
you read the book?
Shawn's like, yeah, my head still hurts. And I kind of wish Turner was like, why don't you just take the test though? If you know everything, just take it.
Yeah.
But we needed drama. So Turner's like, I couldn't change the system overnight, Matthews. Come on, work with me here. Which is real. You can't change systems overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Cory takes a risk, runs up to Turner, throws the test in his hand basically, and goes, I'm not taking this test. But then he turns around and you can see on his face like,
he's like, what did I just do? Is that allowed?
Shawn's like, you can do that? And Cory's like, I don't know. And Shawn's like, I'm with you. And he just like goes up, tosses the test in Turner's hand. Me neither. And then the whole class just starts piling their test papers onto Turner's hands. Feeney comes in. Good morning, Mr. Turner. Obviously, I was wrong, and your students are so prepared that they managed to finish the test 2 minutes after the bell has rung. Turner's like, we had a deal. I gave them the test. Interestingly, they gave it back to me. Feeney's like, well, of course they did, earring boy.
Yep.
And he goes, I realize that all you 7th graders are delicate, adolescent flowers, just beginning your high school blooming. And so I say this with utmost sensitivity. Take this test or die.
I had one of those like big belly laughs when you said that. The delivery was absolute perfection.
It really was. It was so good. I laughed so hard. And then he like scooches back over to Turner in the corner and he's like, you just have to tell them as boss. Cory gets up, goes to the front of the room, addresses the class, legs crossed, leaned back against the desk, by the way, like very good body language. He was commanding that room. He goes, is this fair? No, everyone goes. Have we been tricked? Yes. Take the test or die. Die. Then we die together, organized like the people in the book should have done. The first student union. Yeah. That was actually the first time that I was like, oh, student union. Is that what that's supposed to be? Is it supposed to be students demanding rights from teachers?
It's a great question. What was our student union like?
Our student union was a space for students to come together and have ice cream socials.
Yeah.
We've really got
I didn't think of it as organizing.
So Cory starts the union song and everybody starts singing it with him, which only in a TV show, everyone knows the song and I love it. And they all like march in a line out the door following Cory. And he goes,
Look for the union label when you are buying a coat, dress, or blouse. Remember, somewhere our union sewing, our wages going to feed the kids and run the house.
I'm stopping there because that's where the kids stopped on purpose. Because the next line is, we work hard, but who's complaining?
Interesting.
Exactly.
That's amazing. I'm glad you recognize that. That's awesome.
Thanks to the ILG, we're paying our way. So always look for the union label. It says we're able to make it in the USA. So I went on a deep dive with this, and I found that the song was sung in an international ladies' garment workers union ad. The ad is from 1978, and you just see a man on screen going, "There used to be more of us in the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, but a lot of our jobs have disappeared. A lot of the clothes people are buying for women and kids are imports. They're being made in foreign places. When the work's done here, we can support our families and pay our taxes and buy the things other Americans make. That's what it means when the label says union." And then you get everybody singing, "Look for the union label." Relevant.
Yes.
Incredibly so. So they all walk out. Turner's like, "Oh yeah, I can learn a lot from you, George." Feeney's like, "Shut up." When we get back from the commercial break, we're still in the classroom, and Feeney's sitting on the windowsill, wistfully looking through the blinds. And he just goes, St. Algius. Did you get the reference?
Mm-mm.
He was in this really famous show called St. Elsewhere. It was set in a fictional hospital called St. Elgis. It was like a decaying urban teaching hospital in Boston's South End. And the hospital's nickname was St. Elsewhere, which is a slang term used in the medical field to refer to like lesser equipped hospitals that serve patients turned away by more prestigious institutions. Anyway, the show does meta so well. So Feeney kind of admits, like, all right, they've demonstrated the power of labor. Now let's show them what management can do. Trust me, with every tick of the clock, the courage is draining out of their defiant little souls. And then they walk into the cafeteria. Cory's literally standing on a table. "What are we?" And everyone's going, "We are kings." And Cory goes, "And what do kings say?" Cory goes, "They say no more macaroni." And they go, "No more macaroni." Cory goes, "We want steak. We want steak." Cory, "And what do we want with our steak?" Shawn goes, "Macaroni." Cory's like, no, we don't like macaroni. Shawn's like, oh. Cory goes, "And as a side dish to our steak, lobster." So Turner's like, "Yeah, you're right. They're quaking in their boots." Feeney grabs a megaphone. He goes, "So you want to play rough with George Feeney? Fine. Well, take off the gloves. The 7th grade dance is hereby canceled." Shawn's like, "You can't do that." Feeney's like, "I can do whatever I want. I have the megaphone. Here's a doozy. The entire football season." Shawn's like, "Oh no. Canceled." Shawn, "But that means..." "Yes, Mr. Hunter. No cheerleaders." Shawn, "No." Cory's like, "Shawn, it's a strike. We have to make sacrifices." Shawn's on his knees now. "But he's taking my girls." I didn't like the way he said that. "Why can't we just sacrifice you?" So as they're all like, in a procession back to the classroom, all the students with Feeney and Turner behind them, except Cory and Shawn, have now like escaped. Basically, they've left school at this point. Feeney's like, "All right, Mr. Turner, I return you to your students, sadder but wiser." Turner's like, "And what about Matthews and Hunter?" Feeney goes, "For those two, I'm going to go nuclear. I shall call their mommies." We get a moment with Jason, Eric, and Desiree again. And Eric, we see him kind of like falling back into being, attracted to Desiree. Desiree, in this scene, really puts on display that she is just like manipulating Eric. And then that's when Jason does his with his vampire cross. And Eric's like, see, we've been dating all month long, and I've been your willing slave, and you've gotten everything you've wanted out of this relationship. What was I ever going to get? And then she grabs him and she kisses him, and we get this music out of like Mario Party. You've reached the pinnacle of success music.
You got a star.
You got a star. So Desiree finishes kissing him and just goes, goodbye forever. And then we're in the living room, and Cory and Shawn are on the couch, and they're watching the news, and Amy and Alan walk in. They're like, you walked out on school today? You started a strike? What were you possibly thinking? Turner knocks on the door, and I was like, that's so crazy that was a thing back then, that like teachers would come over.
It's like watching a dog walk on its hind legs.
Turner walks in with his like helmet under his arm. That's when we get the line that Alan says, you want to talk to Hoffa and Costello? And Turner's like, yeah, I don't usually make house calls, but this all started in my classroom, so I thought I might step in and mediate. So they head into the kitchen, and Cory's saying, Mr. Turner, all we did was read The Grapes of Wrath. And you know what we learned? You have to fight for your rights. That's why we went on strike, and that's why we're in trouble. I guess this is what happens when the little guys try to stand up to the bosses, huh? Turner's like, no. Let me straighten you out, Matthews. You threw a hissy fit, and you walked out. Cory's like, we went on strike. Turner's like, you did not, because you didn't have the one thing you need to go on a strike. You know what you didn't have? Shawn goes, mob connections. Which is what Jimmy Hoffa had, right? So like it's interesting. It's all everything's connected.
Yeah.
Turner's like, a job. You're just kids. You're in school. Your parents make you lunch. You're not a migrant worker picking grapes. You're just kids. You sleep on sheets with little dinosaurs. Cory's like, rocket ships. Turner's like, look, I messed up too. I should have taught you that you can only take action if you're prepared to take responsibility for those actions. Now, you can decide that you're still students and get back in school where you're sheltered and protected and abide by the rules that go with that. And Alan chimes in and goes, or you can go out into the real world and get an immediate test called Find a Job or Starve. Now,
which was great that came from him, because he left at 12, didn't he? And he started his life at 12. So 12? He knows what it's like to have a hard life.
I thought it was like 15, but
yeah, it was maybe not 12, but it was like before graduating high school, he left and started his life as an adult when he was still a teenager.
So Turner says, face it, guys, Feeney's not going to go away. I mean, he's going to be all over your case. You turn around, he's going to be there. And then he turns around and Feeney's gardening across the street because Turner's in the Matthews kitchen, if you missed that.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you doing here, Mr. Turner? Turner's like, I came to talk to the boys. Turns out they have something to say to you. Cory goes, look, Mr. Feeney, we got it all wrong because we read this book all the way to the beginning. And Feeney goes, really? And I don't suppose you learned anything from it. And Cory goes, well, we learned you're supposed to fight back against what you think is unfair. And Feeney says, and that's the parallel you drew from the Joad family? And Shawn goes, they were out in the real world and they knew they had something big to fight for. And Feeney says, and how do the Joads relate to you? And Cory says, I guess they don't. I mean, we're just kids. Shawn says, yeah, we're not really out in the real world yet. Cory says, they had nothing to eat, nowhere to live. And Shawn says, all they knew was that they deserved a decent wage. And Cory says, and all we know is nothing. And Shawn says, and wherever there's a guy who don't know nothing, I'll be there. So Shawn, having actually read the book, means that he's able to quote it as a master of the novel. Like he's able to recognize a social situation that he's in and reference the book and bring the book into the moment. That's mastery. Like that's when you've demonstrated that you know something. I understand this moment as a teacher. I actually would give a student a higher grade for having this level conversation with me about the book than them writing me a 10-page paper about the book, which is the assignment I've given them because I'm the worst, and they haven't actually read it. Like you could write a 10-page paper and work so much harder and put so many more hours into it and do worse than a 5-minute conversation with me where I'm like, oh yeah, you definitely read this book. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay.
10 pages?
I'm the worst. When Shawn quotes the book, Feeney says, well said. And Shawn says, it's from the book. I actually read it. And Feeney says, I believe you did. And I'll take that into consideration. That'll be all. You can go. And they leave. And he says, well, Mr. Turner, I must admit, they sound as if they actually know the material. And Turner says, yeah. And we found that out without giving him a test. And Feeney says, oh, you don't call what they just went through a test? And Turner says, I'd call it a learning experience, Feeney. I don't think it's realistic for every kid to be given this opportunity, but I think that this is, of course, the ideal way that kids learn is by experiencing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Experiential learning is ideal. It's just unfortunately really hard to do as teachers. Like I think as parents, you should give your kids experiential learning. It's much easier to do it in that setting than it is to do it in a classroom setting.
Yeah, I think just at the end where he says, I think it's a learning experience, is them kind of compromising a little bit, finding common ground on what the expectation is moving forward of like, okay, maybe no test is not the right solution. Maybe being like a hard ass is also not a solution. Finding some in between is kind of the sweet spot.
Don't make the test the only assessment. So we get a little tag button on the episode where Eric's like ready to play basketball. He's coming up to Jason in the hallway and he's like, I'm alive again. Desiree's out of my life and I can play ball with my buds. And Jason is dressed not for basketball, but he is wearing an outfit that's like my backup outfit of the day. He's got this great like navy blue sweater on with a little collared shirt popping out from the like crew neck. And he's got these jeans. Everything's tailored
I knew from the outfit right away. I was like, oh no. He's whipped.
That's interesting that you knew. I wasn't that sharp. And he's like, I shouldn't play. I've been holding you guys back. I'm just too petite. And then his beeper beeps. And Eric's like, what's that? And Jason's like, that was my pacemaker. I'm having a heart attack right now. Desiree comes in with her clueless. She has like a plaid tailored suit.
It's like red plaid too. It's like sharp, tailored. I think it's shorts. I love it.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And Desiree was like, you didn't answer my page, my little raisinette. I laughed so hard. He looks like a raisinette personified. Like he looks like the incarnation of a raisinette. And Jason's like, I'm sorry, it was all his fault. Talking to Eric, and Desiree's like, just be sure to pick me up in time for my pedicure. Say yes, Puddin'. And then they mirror the situation Eric was in earlier where Jason says yes, and then Eric's like, I believe the woman wants Puddin', and Jason says, Puddin'. And then Puddin'. And then she leaves, and then he's like, what? I'm only in it for the breakup kiss. So interesting. So yeah. That's the end of the episode. What are your takeaways?
I'm not sure. I want to hear yours first.
Well, obviously, it was a lot about teaching. And so my takeaway is I'm going to remember that I need to strike a balance between testing and giving students experiential learning opportunities.
I kind of alluded to this in the beginning of the episode. The Grapes of Wrath was written, it was written in the late 30s, I think, discussing post-Great Depression life for the working class. And
1939,
there's this false idea that, this was the struggle of American people in the past. And there's this kind of assumption, if you're kind of living in a privileged world, you kind of think that that's not really happening anymore, but it absolutely is. And I would argue to the same degree, maybe not on the same scale, but I would say to the same degree. So it's like my takeaway is keeping myself educated on the modern working class and their struggles and like how that ties into systemic racism and how all of the fight towards, equality, racial justice, economic justice, like that's all tied together, kind of keeping myself aware. I read that the average salary for migrant workers today is $20,000 a year.
Oh my God.
That is $1,600 a month before taxes. So after taxes, it's about $1,100 to work with for the month.
That's crazy. I had so much more I was going to say, but I'm going to cut us off here. I will say that I didn't really say anything about this idea that like they're just kids and that they're being taken care of and that they don't really have a right to protest the system because they have a pretty cushy situation. Like taking a test is not oppression in the way that working your butt off for $20,000 a year and it being about your literal livelihood and your food and your water and your humanity is, you know? And I think a little more of that would go a long way with a lot of these middle and upper class students that feel some type of entitlement and you know are pushing back against the system.
Yeah.
That said, that's the end of our episode. Thanks for listening. Please rate and review us. We would love to have 5 stars, please. Follow us at Boy Meets Wine Podcast on Instagram. We're working on that TikTok. Actually, no, the TikTok exists, guys. The name of the wine we had today was Wonders Vin de France. White wine.
It's a white wine blend.
White wine blend. The theme song credit goes to Julia Rosa. And next week's episode is Season 2, Episode 5, The Uninvited. Cory tries to fit in with the popular crowd. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.